across that from the Tyne Valley all the way out to the North Tyne and into Calton and Throckley too. So can the Secretary of State work with me to ensure that we continue to support young people in all those different disparate communities to access the skills and the opportunities that they deserve?
Secretary of State.
My honourable friend is right to say that people have different needs in different parts of the country. We need to tailor employment support to the needs of individuals. So alongside measures like our youth guarantee, we are also overhauling our job centres to provide that more personalised support, and indeed introducing measures like mobile job centres to provide better help in rural areas.
Question number 3, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given the significant investment, DWP has partnered with BAE and the nuclear sector to promote a variety of career pathways, including roles across their supply chains. We're also working within BAE's The Bridge Hub in Barrow, a collaborative space offering employment advice and support from BAE Systems and a range of local employers and organisations to connect talent with locally based jobs. In Barrow, further, our Youth Hub is run in partnership with Brathay Trust and Project John, supporting young people holistically to meet employers and develop their talents.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've been impressed by the work being done in Drop Zone in my constituency. They run a variety of projects for young people, including specialised education for those with additional needs, mental health support and support for the transition back into education, employment and training. But young people in Barrow and Furness still face difficult challenges from a long legacy of underfunding. The Youth Trailblazer scheme is already making a difference in some constituencies after just a few months. Will the Minister meet with me to discuss how we can tailor this scheme to specifically target young people in Barrow and Furness?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the Honourable Lady for her question. Barrow does have unique circumstances, unique challenges and unique opportunities, and it's important that all parts of the government address those unique opportunities and challenges in Barrow. And I would be very happy to meet with her to discuss that further, what we're already doing and what more we can go on to do to make sure that young people in Barrow have the best chance possible in life.
John Mull.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 4.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Office for Budget Responsibility forecast in March that incapacity and disability benefit spending would be £90.7 billion in 2029-30. That figure will be updated at the budget. Better employment support, removing perverse work disincentives in universal credit are the key to getting more people into work.
John Mum.
Mr. Speaker, just 2 months ago, the Secretary of State was left humiliated after being forced to significantly water down her botched welfare bill. So can the Minister tell the House, if the Government had pressed ahead with the bill as originally drafted, how much less would taxpayers be spending on benefits by 2030?
As I've said, Mr. Speaker, the OBR will update its forecast at the time of the budget. But we inherited a terrible situation with record numbers of people economically inactive. Economic inactivity is down since the election. Employment is up. Those developments have been encouraging, but our reforms will be going much further. The £3.8 billion that we're investing in employment support for people out of work on health and disability grounds, that's the biggest package ever, will be the key.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would she agree with me that we must invest in community mental health services if we are to reduce spending on mental health disability?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I very much welcome the NHS 10-year plan, which our right honourable friend has published, which does give a new priority and new commitment to mental health support. And I agree with my honourable friend, that's a very important part of tackling the problems that we need to resolve.
Shadow Minister Danicourt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And it's good to see the Minister back after the break. But I'm sorry to hear that there are still no plans to reduce spending on PIP. Indeed, he has said that he is collaborating with people who would not be working with him on his review if there were to be any reductions in the levels of benefit or eligibility. So given this veto on the cuts to PIP, can I implore him again to at least look at the benefits that PIP is gateway to? So motability, disability premium, council tax discounts, blue badges. Would he at least promise that these entitlements could come down?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we've made it clear we are going to co-produce our review of the PIP assessment with disabled people themselves, with representatives of disability organisations. The review will cover the mobility component assessment, which leads on to the Motability scheme, and other entitlements which PIP is a gateway to.
But no possibility of any of those entitlements coming down or any of the spending being reduced. Now, Mr. Speaker, we have 1.25 million foreign nationals claiming universal credit. Most of them are not in employment. I hope he doesn't plan to co-produce his plans with foreign nationals. Though knowing Labour lawyers, I expect they'll be saying that the ECHR demands they do just that. Can he tell the House whether he thinks that subsidising more and more foreign nationals is what the British security system is for? And if not, will he, as we've been arguing, will he restrict sickness benefits to British nationals only?
Is that we have a fair system. We are reviewing universal credit at the moment. We're looking at problems, for example, the 5-week wait that was inserted into universal credit when it was introduced. And we're making changes to make sure that it effectively tackles poverty and deals with and does the job that we need it to do. Fairness will be at the heart of the system.
Tasha Iron.
Question number 6, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Croydon East, young people aged 18 to 21 will be helped by a Youth Guarantee Trailblazer being delivered by the Greater London Authority. This will strengthen early identification and outreach to engage young Londoners who are not in employment, education or training or at risk of being so, linking them to better support, employment and education opportunities and essential services they need. I'm glad that DWP will continue to support the communities within Croydon East by hosting an information stall at her upcoming advice fair in New Addington.
Natasha Irons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Croydon is London's youngest borough, and with 6.6% of people aged between 16 and 24 claiming out-of-work benefits in my constituency of Croydon East, supporting young people into work and breaking down barriers to their opportunities is vital. So could you just give us a little bit more detail about the additional funding for the London Youth Guarantee Trailblazers, and can she outline how they will be helping Croydon's young people get into work? And I look forward to having the DWP with us in New Addington.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Honourable Lady for her question, and I'll pass on her comments to my colleagues in Croydon who are really keen to work with her and the other MPs there. In the summer, the Secretary of State announced further funding for our 8 Youth Guarantee Trailblazers with an extra 45 million. And that will make sure that in London, like in the rest of the country, our young people get the choices and chances they deserve.
John Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Number 7, please.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government has committed to significant measures to counter welfare fraud, error and debt. This is the biggest package of such measures in recent history, and the OBR has estimated it will deliver an additional £9.6 billion of savings over the next 5 years. The package is underpinned by our Public Authorities Fraud, Error and Recovery Bill, which contains a range of new powers to enable us to keep pace with offenders who exploit the social security system.
Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his answer there. I think we can all agree that fraud strikes at the heart of the system, underpinning it, kicking away the underpinnings of it, in fact. And I do hope that the government will undertake a zero-tolerance approach to this. Unlike in Scotland, where we have recently heard that £36 million of benefit money which was paid out in error is not now to be recovered. Does the Minister agree that that's deeply unfair to taxpayers?
Minister.
The honourable gentleman tempts me to encroach upon what are legitimately policy questions for the Scottish Government. What I would say is that the policy of this government is clear and is set out in the bill, but I am grateful to the Cabinet Secretary for Social Justice for continuing to work with me constructively to try and make this bill as workable as possible, alignment where we can, but where, if we end up diverging, we are still able to make sure that we are doing everything that we can from this Parliament and everything that the Scottish Government chooses to do to bear down on fraud and error.
Chris Kay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Minister share my surprise that a member of the party responsible for over a decade of rising poverty, record benefit delays and billions lost to fraud and error is now suddenly concerned about tackling it And while across this House we recognise the need to tackle fraud within our welfare system, we should also recognise the huge issue we have with tax avoidance and tax evasion, as recently highlighted by the Public Accounts Committee, which requires significant attention.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I very much agree with my honourable friend. This government is determined to bear down on tax evasion with 5,000 additional investigators wherever we see people who are ripping off the public purse, whether that is those who are defrauding the DWP or whether there are those who are abusing the tax system. We are determined to bear down on that, and that is what we will do.
Alistair Bean.
Question 8, please, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the PIP application process is outdated and can be very difficult to navigate. The current health transformation programme will deliver radical improvements and much better efficiency.
Alistair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my constituency of Freeman East Somerset, I was contacted by a woman who suffered 2 strokes, resulting in permanent right-side paralysis and ongoing mobility difficulties. Despite her condition being permanent, she's had to undergo reassessment for PIP and has appealed for it to be reinstated. I welcome the government changing this reassessment requirement for people with long-term health conditions, but could the Minister clarify what steps they're taking to reduce the stress and difficulty of the PIP application process for people with these serious health conditions?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the health transformation programme that I've mentioned will allow the introduction of a modern digital service, which is certainly not how the current arrangements should be characterised. It's a big job. The programme is going to run until 2029, but the outcome from it will be a process which is simpler, which is easier to understand, I hope reducing the stress that the Honourable Member has rightly drawn attention to, and also with shorter decision times.
Rachel Maskell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the summer, I have been doing a deep dive into children with SEND and not least looking at those transition points between education and work. As part of the Tim's review, his own review, will he ensure that that interface is really looked at so there is a smooth transition for young people as opposed to the cliff edges which many young people face in being able to make that transition into work?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the review will look specifically at the PIP assessment, but we have, in the Green Paper published earlier this year, suggested that the age of transition from DLA to PIP should be increased from 16 to 18. That was one of the consultation proposals. I think that change could assist with the concerns my honourable friend is raising. We're looking at the moment at the consultation responses we've received.
Question 9, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary of State.
We are determined to drive down child poverty in the Honourable Gentleman's constituency and right across Scotland and the rest of the UK. Our child poverty strategy will look at every lever at our disposal to drive up family incomes, drive down family costs and give every child the best start in life. I regularly discuss these issues with the Chancellor and indeed ministers across government, because we will leave no stone unturned in ensuring every child can fulfil their potential because they deserve it and our country needs it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 2 million pensioners in the UK are in poverty, with the British state pension amongst the worst in North West Europe. During the independence referendum, Better Together claimed our pensions are more affordable as part of the UK. 11 years on, can the ministers tell me exactly what the union is doing for Scottish pensioners other than impoverish them?
Thank you.
Secretary.
I mean, I would say to the Honourable Gentleman, investing in, an additional £31 billion in the triple lock over the Parliament is delivering huge benefits to pensioners in Scotland. Our measures to drive up uptake of pension credit to help the very poorest pensioners. Our measures to stabilise the economy, to invest in the NHS, which many pensioners rely on. I'm very proud of the action that we are taking, but indeed with the biggest ever funding settlement agreed for Scotland and given by this government, I would ask him to ask some challenging questions of his own government to make sure they deliver for Scotland's pensioners too.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last year, a staggering 1 in 4 kids in Derby lived in poverty. Our local charities like the Derby Food for Thought Alliance do some amazing work, handing out last year 20,000 food parcels. Will the Secretary of State ensure that the upcoming food poverty strategy, the child poverty strategy, address the root causes of child food poverty so that parents aren't left struggling to put tea on the table?
Secretary of State.
I understand very well the issues my honourable friend raises. As a former chair of Feeding Leicester, the programme to end hunger in my city, I see only too clearly the links between poverty and dependence on emergency food parcels. I'm very proud we've already slashed deductions in universal credit, that we have extended the Crisis and Resilience Fund, the first 3-year funding settlement for that under this government. There's much more to do, but we want to make sure children have hungry minds, not hungry bellies, and we are determined to deliver.
Peter Bedford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The best way of reducing poverty is being in work. But as a result of this government's damaging economic policies, we've seen youth unemployment rise by 6% since the general election. What representations will the Secretary of State make to the Chancellor ahead of the budget to ensure that more damage isn't done?
Secretary of State.
The Labour Party believes that everybody who can work must work. I would say to him he should look at his own party's record. The disability employment gap stalled under their watch. The lone parent employment rate stalled. Economic inactivity rose. We haven't got the only country in the G7 whose employment rate hasn't got back to pre-pandemic levels. We are overhauling our employment system to help more people into work and get on in their work. I'm proud of our record. Maybe he should look at his own.
Neil Duncan-Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tackling poverty should, of course, be one of the key priorities of any government that wishes to see its people thrive. The Equality Act 2010 includes a socio-economic duty that requires all public bodies to address such inequalities when making strategic decisions. Can the Secretary of State tell the House when this duty will be enacted in England?
My honourable friend raises a really important point, and I would say to him, throughout the work of the DWP, we are already looking at how we narrow gaps between different parts of the country and different groups. We have set our job centres and employment system new targets to reduce those gaps. We are taking cross-government action to tackle child poverty too. We have achieved a lot. There's a lot more to do. But this government, unlike members opposite, has made tackling poverty an absolute priority. We have our child poverty strategy coming out in the autumn, and I would just say to honourable members, watch this space.
Sarah Bull.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 10.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The latest provisional statistics taken from StatExplore show that in July 2025, there were 768,000 people aged 16 to 24 years old on universal credit. And around 180,000 young people are on universal credit and in work, which is about a quarter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Minister for her response, but according to the House of Commons Library, in my constituency of South Northamptonshire, the claimant count for those aged 16 to 24 has risen by 46%. That's 46%, one of the largest percentage increases in the country. This side of the House knows that the government has a moral duty not to let our young people learn that a life of benefits is a life for them. So how does the Minister explain this increase and what will they do?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just must remind members opposite again that it was their party that introduced universal credit, removing the distinction between out of work and in work benefits. But for those 3/4 of young people who are out of work and on universal credit, our guarantee for young people will make sure that they get a second chance in life after they were utterly failed during the pandemic by the Conservative Party.
Sarah Hall.
Question number 11, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Department continues to provide a broad range of data to local authorities to enable fast, accurate assessments for services including blue badges and free school meals. Looking ahead, the Department is committed to expanding real-time data sharing in critical areas such as housing benefit and care homes, while also testing innovative models such as the Work Well scheme that bring together local and central services to deliver more joined-up support for citizens.
Sarah Hall.
Thank
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Warrington South, too many children entitled to free school meals are missing out because of avoidable administrative barriers. No child should have to sit in a classroom hungry. Every child deserves a full stomach and a fair chance. A simple change would make a big difference, ensuring every eligible child gets the support they are entitled to. It would ease pressure on families, help reduce child poverty, and give schools the confidence that pupils are ready to learn. Will the Minister commit to strengthening data sharing, not only with local authorities, but also with the Department for Education, so that automatic enrolment for free school meals can be introduced?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My honourable friend is entirely right to raise this issue. It is something that we will look at working closely with the Department for Education as part of the Child Poverty Strategy. But can I also say to her that, of course, we share her ambition to ensure that families can claim the support they need. Our expansion of free school meals to all children in households claiming universal credit will actually make it much easier for parents to know if they are eligible, as well as lifting some 100,000 children out of poverty.
Jim Shadow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I thank the Minister very much for his reply? As always, he's very positive in his responses. Minister, in relation to the anti-poverty strategy that the Minister referred to, can I ask what discussions has the Minister had in relation to the anti-poverty strategy for us in Northern Ireland? The Assembly, the poverty levels have risen dramatically, mental health issues have risen dramatically, and young people in particular are under great pressure. I know the Minister is always compassionate and understanding. Can I ask him what he's doing in relation to the Northern Ireland Assembly to make it better for us there as well? Thank you.
Minister.
The honourable gentleman will understand, Mr. Speaker, that we want this to be a strategy for England, Wales, Scotland and, of course, Northern Ireland. And he will be reassured to know that those leading on the child poverty strategy have held a number of meetings with ministers in Northern Ireland to make sure that the specific needs of Northern Ireland are taken into consideration.
Damon Heath.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 13, please.
Secretary of State.
1 in 8 young people are not in education, employment or training. That's bad for them, bad for businesses and bad for our country as a whole. Our West of England Youth Guarantee Trailblazer, which includes my honourable friend's constituency, is helping to remove barriers to work for young people, including by providing free bus travel for participants and connecting young people with skills support. Last month, I announced an additional £45 million to extend our Youth Guarantee Trailblazers, so we guarantee all young people are earning or learning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and that's fantastic to hear. So I'd like to ask the Secretary of State to set out the practical impact so far of what the West of England Youth Guarantee Trailblazer is achieving, and assuming it's positive, to confirm plans to back this up with more investment to support our young people in the Bristol area.
Secretary of State.
I'm really proud of the work that is being led in the West of England, including by our fantastic Mayor, Helen Godwin, to help more young people. One of the specific things it has been doing is engaging much more deeply with employers, over 135 employers, helping to enrol young people in employability courses and giving them more work placements to give them the skills and experience they need. He will know young people say you need experience to get a job, but in order to get the job you need that experience. We're trying to turn that around. The additional funding we've announced will provide up to another £5 million for that West of England Youth Guarantee Trailblazer. A lot done, but a lot more to do.
Christine Jardine.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Question number 14, please.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Government is committed to ensuring that all pensioners receive the support to which they are entitled. That's why we've been running the biggest ever pension credit take-up campaign. We plan to continue promotional activity through from September to the end of this financial year, with a focus not just on eligible pensioners, but on their friends and family too.
Christine Jardine.
Mr. Speaker, earlier this year a constituent of mine in Edinburgh West, however, contacted me about the delay she had faced in getting pension credit she was entitled to. She applied in September last year, was told it would be November, and it was actually March before she got her pension credit awarded. The delay meant she went without extra support at the same time as losing her winter fuel allowance through the winter. So what steps will the Minister be taking to cut these delays and stop more vulnerable pensioners left cold this winter?
Minister.
Well, I thank the honourable member for her question. On the individual case, I hope she'll write with me with those details. On the more general picture, I can reassure her that what we now have is the lower backlogs in terms of cases to be processed for pension credit that we inherited under the last government. That's despite the record level of claims that have come through.
Judith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Boots has been a significant employer in my constituency of Broxtowe since 1927, and many of my constituents have been proud to work for them. However, those close to claiming their pensions have been advised that they're unable to withdraw their pensions at an unreduced rate at the age of 60, as they were led to believe. Can I ask the Minister to recognise the frustration many of the Boots pensioners now feel, and does he agree with me that the Pensions Ombudsman should progress swiftly with their process?
Minister.
Well, I thank the honourable friend for her question. She's raised this matter with me before, and the one thing I can confirm is that she's a powerful advocate for her constituents on what is a very important issue for them. She knows that I won't be able to comment on the individual cases, particularly as it's now with the Pension Ombudsman, but more generally it is important that where promises have been made to pensioners in the details of their pensions, that those are lived up to, and that's exactly what the Pension Ombudsman exists to make sure happens.
Shadow Minister Montgomery.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, thanks to our Conservative winter fuel payments campaign, thousands of pensioners have signed up to pension credits, and millions more pensioners will receive winter fuel allowance after the party opposite admitted that their policy on winter fuel payments was wrong. But, Mr. Speaker, the Social Security Advisory Committee recently concluded that the government's winter fuel plans fall short in delivering their objectives of fairness, administrative simplicity and targeted support. It seems, Mr. Speaker, that the government has prioritised civil service bureaucracy over helping frozen pensioners. Does the Minister agree with the Social Security Advisory Committee's conclusion on their policies?
Minister.
Well, I thank the honourable member for his question, and I would also congratulate members on all sides of this House that have run campaigns to drive up pension credit. It is very important. That is why we've seen 60,000 extra awards over the course of the year to July 2025 compared to the year previously, and that is very welcome, not just work by members but work done by civil society organisations and local authorities too. Specifically on the points he raised about the process for winter fuel payments for this winter and forward, I don't agree with the characterisation he's chosen to present. Particularly on the tax side, the process will be automatic. Nobody will be brought into tax or self-assessment purely because of that change, and the vast majority will have their winter fuel payments recouped through the PAYE system automatically, and anyone that wants to can opt out. And I should remind members that the deadline for that is the 15th of September.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Steve Darling.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the Labour government inherited around 3 million pensioners in poverty from the previous Conservative government around a year ago. Sadly, the winter fuel cuts last winter saw many pensioners pushed into hardship. In light of winter fuel hikes, will the Minister reconsider their proposals and ensure that monies are paid to pensioners who missed out on winter fuel payments last winter? Thank you.
Minister.
I thank the honourable member for his question, but I would just gently say that every time that he comes to this House and opposes every single tax rise or any difficult choice that's making, what he's saying is that the Liberal Democrats are not a party that could deliver on commitments, for example, to the triple lock, which costs, as my honourable friend mentioned earlier, £31 billion in terms of the increase by the end of this Parliament a year. There are things called choices that are necessary to provide for the top priorities, and our top priorities on this side of the House for pensions are to make sure that we are able to increase the state pension as the bedrock of most pensioners' living standards, and to make sure we're able to save the NHS, and that's exactly what we're going to continue to do.
Brother.
Question number 15, please, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we will increase the number of face-to-face rather than remote PIP assessments, increasing the number of health professionals in assessment centres in order to deliver them. I think you'd agree, though, that it's important to keep telephone or video alternatives for those who need them.
Brother.
Mr. Speaker, many West Dorset constituents have written to me with deep anxiety about the assessment process for personal independence payments, especially the use of remote assessments. One constituent has endured months of repeated phone assessments triggering severe panic attacks, high blood pressure, lasting psychological harm, despite previously being awarded enhanced PIP. The Secretary of State has previously committed to me to move away from phone-based assessments. So my question is, what additional resources are going to be made available to support the rollout of more face-to-face assessments in West Dorset?
Well, Mr. Speaker, there was a switch to remote assessments in the pandemic for obvious reasons. But my right honourable friend has made the point repeatedly, and it was said in the Pathways to Work Green Paper, we do want to move sharply back to face-to-face, while keeping alternatives for those who need them. And I'm sure he would have spoken to people for whom the prospect of going to an assessment centre provokes the kind of anxiety that he referred to his constituent experiencing as a result of a telephone call. So we are speaking to the assessment providers at the moment, and we will be increasing, we've already increased actually, the proportion of face-to-face assessments, and that work will continue.
Leo Albert.
Question number 16.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and with permission, I'll answer questions 16 and 20 together, as they're both about the great city of Southend. Colleagues in Southend Job Centre are working very hard with Southend young people to help them gain skills, experience and confidence. The team have launched a bespoke employability workshop designed for young people and recently delivered a regional work experience pilot for college students. Alongside this, they work with our great partners such as the King's Trust and First Point Training to provide placements and opportunities, as well as through the employer-led Movement to Work programme.
Leo Albert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Young people across the UK who are not in education, employment or training are more than twice as likely to come from disadvantaged backgrounds. What steps is the Minister taking to ensure that support reaches those who need it most?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the Secretary of State mentioned some moments ago that in everything that we do in the Department for Work and Pensions, we are trying to close the gap between those who have suffered disadvantage and those who haven't. Young people, especially those who've experienced poverty, are vulnerable to mental ill health, and the pandemic generation deserve more support to get the chances that they missed. That's why we have a joint work and health unit with the Department for Health, and we have many agreements across Whitehall as part of our net zero mission and alongside our investment in defence to help employers recruit the next generation, whatever their background.
David Burton-Sachs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Southend Western Lee, I'll shortly be hosting a youth day for young people featuring local apprentice star Gisola Chitambola, who is now an apprenticeship coach, amongst other things. Does she agree with me that early interventions like this youth day are really important in preventing young people becoming another neat statistic?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I do agree with my honourable friend. I congratulate him on his youth day and the work that he is doing on this kind of early intervention. If you look at the data, you can see very clearly if you've got qualifications, if you get some work experience, if you've got support for your health and other factors in life, that is very protective against being without work or education or training. So we've got to both give those who need one a second chance and take steps to prevent people being in that situation in the first place.
Joe Platt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 17.
It is a shameful legacy from the party opposite that over a third of children in my honourable friend's constituency are living in poverty, according to the Child Poverty Action Group, and we are determined to tackle it. We will be lifting over 100,000 children out of poverty by providing free school meals to all children whose families are on universal credit, benefiting more than 7,300 children in Lee and Atherton. We'll also be helping feed them during the summer holidays by extending the holiday activities and food programme, alongside our fair repayment rate in universal credit and our Crisis and Resilience Fund. We are helping struggling families. There's much more we'll do in our child poverty strategy this autumn, but we can and we are making a difference.
Joe Platt.
Speaker, and I thank the Minister wholeheartedly for that response, and I do agree with her. Because of the lack of action from the last government, we have 26.6% of children in Lee and Atherton living in poverty, and I welcome the measures that this government is taking, including the extension of free school meals, but more does need to be done. So can the Minister reassure us that she is working hard on the child poverty strategy to ensure that it addresses the needs of all children in poverty, including those with disabilities and special educational needs, so that every child can reach their full potential?
So state.
We will absolutely do this. The Child Poverty Task Force, which includes ministers from across government, had a specific session on children with disabilities and special educational needs, including with families and with the charities that fight so hard to deliver improvements. I am not a patient person myself. I would ask my honourable friend to wait until this child poverty strategy is published in the autumn, because we believe every child, no matter where they're born, what their parents did or their ability, must be given an equal start in life.
Done.
Question 18, please, Mr. Speaker.
So state.
Need my glasses. This government is determined to get Britain working again. That's why we're investing £80 million in our trailblazing programmes to drive down economic inactivity. We're overhauling our job centres to provide better, more personalised employment support. We're delivering a youth guarantee so every young person is earning or learning, and providing a record 3.8 billion people to help sick and disabled people who can work to get into work. There is much further to go, but we are already making a difference.
Will Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Secretary of State for the response. There are a lot of disabled people in Swindon with long-term health conditions that tell me they want to get to work, but they are just simply not given the opportunity. What is this government doing to support those people get dignified work? Thank you.
So state.
I want to thank my honourable friend for his question, because he raised an important point that I don't want to let go, which is how many people with a long-term health condition or a disability are actually desperate to work. Our own survey of people on sickness and disability benefits found 200,000 people would work right now if they were given an opportunity. We need to give people help to tackle their underlying health conditions, which we're doing through our investment in the NHS. We need to encourage employers to do more, to give opportunities to disabled people to work. But above all, this government is determined to meet our responsibilities with £3.8 billion invested into employment support for sick and disabled people, the biggest in a generation. And I very much look forward to working with him and organisations in Swindon to make sure we get that support right locally.
Sir Ashley Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Secretary of State accept that the reason that unemployment is higher today than the day she took office is the jobs tax, which increases employers' costs by £25 billion? And what hope has her Trailblazer programme got when the Chancellor is working against her?
So state.
I just fundamentally disagree with his premise there. Economic inactivity is down by 400,000 because we are moving more people from being out of work and not looking for work to actually starting to have to look for work. Employment is up 725,000. We've created 380,000 jobs. I absolutely know there's more we need to do. We are working very closely with employers. We're overhauling what we're doing. One of the things employers say to us is we don't want to tell our story to thousands of different job centres. We are putting in a single account manager. We're overhauling our support for employers, and I would be happy to meet with him and employers in his constituency to see what more we can do to support them, because we want to get Britain working and earning again.
Come to topicals, Chris Minns.
Number one, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary of State.
I'd like to start, if I may briefly, Mr. Speaker, by congratulating all the pupils who received their exam results in the last few weeks. I think having good qualifications in today's economy is absolutely essential, and it's brilliant to see so many young people doing so well. But I really believe that the number of young people not in education, employment or training is one of the biggest challenges facing this country, and you're much more likely to be NEET, so-called NEET, if you lack basic skills. That's why I'm so proud of the action this government is taking to increase the number of youth apprenticeships, overhaul foundation apprenticeships, and above all, to put in place a youth guarantee so every young person is earning or learning.
Chris Vince.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I hope you had a lovely recess. Can I thank the Secretary of State for her? Answer to my initial question. Harlow is full of so many fantastic schools, and I see the potential that young people have in Harlow every single day. However, quite often that potential is overlooked because of economic circumstances. So can I ask the Secretary of State to explain how the new Crisis and Resilience Fund will support the poorest children in Harlow?
Secretary of State.
Thank my honourable friend for his question. At the spending review, we announced the first ever multi-year settlement of what was the Household Support Fund, but which we are turning into a Crisis and Resilience Fund with £1 billion of funding every single year. That will not only provide emergency help to families, for example, if their white goods break down or they need emergency food, but increasingly we want to start shifting it towards tackling the root causes of poverty, helping people become more financially resilient with debt advice. And we recently held a meeting with over 600 stakeholders to look at how we can get that shift, because we want to prevent people falling into poverty and give them the tools they need to get out of poverty themselves.
Ellen Waitley, Shadow Secretary of State.
Thank you. Can I welcome the Right Honourable Lady back after the summer? She said recently it had been a bumpy few months. An understatement, I would say, Mr. Speaker, because last time we stood here, she had just completed a rather humiliating climb down on her welfare savings plans. She set out to save money, but ended up spending it. You couldn't make it up, but here we are. The number of benefit claimants has hit a record high. The sickness benefit bill is heading up, and still she has backbenchers and cabinet colleagues calling for even more spending on welfare. The Chancellor is busy doing her sums in advance of the budget. So can the Right Honourable Lady tell us how much will lifting the two-child benefits cap cost?
Secretary of State.
I mean, I'm not often called understated, but I thank the Honourable Lady for her compliment. Look, welfare reform is always difficult because it's real people, real lives, and it is a complicated and personal issue. I would just say to her that we are investing £3.8 billion into employment support to get sick and disabled people into work. We're introducing the first ever right to try work, and we are fundamentally dealing with the perverse incentive left by the party opposite, which encouraged people to define themselves as incapable of work, and we're addressing that by raising the standard allowance of universal credit and halving the health top-up for new claims. There's much more we need to do, and I will have to say to her, in terms of child poverty, we will be publishing our strategy in the autumn, but I am very proud. The last Labour government lifted 600,000 children out of poverty. Her party plunged 900,000 children into poverty. We'll take action, and as I said, she should watch this space.
The Right Honourable Lady a simple question. I fear she doesn't know. She certainly didn't answer it. What is clear is that Labour wants to spend more on welfare, so do the Lib Dems, and so does Reform. Only one party here is telling the truth about the welfare bill. The country cannot afford it. So can I urge the Right Honourable Lady to take up my proposals? Stop giving benefits for common mental health problems like anxiety and ADHD. Give people health instead. Stop giving PIP to foreign citizens who haven't paid into our system and free cars to people who don't need them. Stop people scamming the benefit system over the phone and on the internet. Keep the two-child benefits cap and get the benefits bill under control.
Can I just say, we are on topicals, and it's your own members that aren't going to get in. Secretary of State.
The party opposite failed on welfare because it failed on work. The reason why we inherited such a dire situation with sickness and disability benefits is they failed to get people into work. We're turning that round, and it's about time she and members opposite put forward a proper plan of action that actually got people into work. We believe in work. It's a pity the party opposite doesn't.
Whereas, Mr. Speaker, the number of young, neat people very often is a reflection of a range of different factors: poverty, poor mental health services, lack of access to support services, inadequate transport, SEND and care services, especially in remote coastal areas like Camborne, Redruth and Hale. Can the Minister reassure the House and these young people that joined up cross-departmental working groups have been set up to tackle this issue head-on?
Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, that's exactly how we're working, and I thank the honourable member for his question. Our Get Britain Working Plan identified Cornwall as a rural industrial legacy employment area, and we specifically pointed out the lack of connectivity, which is why, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to our new job centres service, we're also trialling job centres on wheels. That is buses that can take support to where people are, designed for rural areas, and they recently featured on The One Show.
We come to Liberal Democrat spokesperson Steve Darling.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the government is right to want to see more people with disabilities and long-term sickness into work. Sadly, this was used to justify savage cuts to benefits that were proposed earlier this year. However, myself and colleagues are hearing reports of cuts being done by the back door of current awards on access to work and new payments of access to work. Can the Minister cast any light on this, whether guidance have been given to the civil servants of such cuts?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there's been no change at all to policy on access to work. As the honourable member knows, we did consult in the Green Paper earlier in the year on reform to access to work. There's been a big increase in demand for it. Reform is needed. We're looking at the moment at the consultation responses. I think there may have been instances in the past where the published guidance hasn't always been properly applied. It is being applied now, and that may give rise to some of the issues that have been drawn to his attention. There'll be no change in the policy at all.
Jim Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I warmly commend the locally led £100 million Connect to Work programme, which supports those with complex barriers to employment to get into work and to stay in work. A constituent of mine, Charlie, has explained to me some of the barriers to work he experiences living with ASD and ADHD, but he's a dedicated and focused young man who is to be commended for wanting to be a useful member of society. Can the Minister update me on what support Connect to Work and other schemes like it will offer Charlie and other constituents of mine in Dartford?
We want to give people like Charlie the chances and choices in life he deserves, and our Connect to Work programme will do everything from helping people to access health treatment if they are able to provide work placement, build their confidence, training, skills, whatever meets their individual needs. That, I think, is the key to this. An end to a one-size-fits-all tick-box approach, tailored support for him, but also working closely with employers so that they remove the barriers to work and can employ people with all the skills and talent that people like Charlie have.
Sarah Bull.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the main benefits of saving into a private pension is the tax relief you get from the government, which is one of the smartest ways to save for later life. Any move by this government to cut pensions tax relief will devastate savings rates and adequacy of pension provisions. I would hope that the Secretary of State knows this, so can she assure me that she has made it clear to the Chancellor when she's looking to fill the fiscal black hole of her own making that she doesn't target pensions?
Minister.
Well, you only had to wait till next week, till Treasury questions, and you could have asked the question then, but you've got the same answer. I think what we should do is look at the record of actual parties in terms of what have they done. When I look back over the last 14 years of Tory budgets, what I see is a party chopping, and Lib Dems, thank you for pointing that out, chopping and changing pension tax relief left, right and centre because they had no plan, and those were the same budgets that drove child poverty up and wages down.
Luke Charters.
Speaker, it's great to be back after taking paternity leave, and thank you for your support. I welcome the government's parental leave review, but currently partners only get unpaid time off work for 2 antenatal appointments. Does my right honourable friend agree that this is a gap, and can she confirm that the review is looking at how we can better support parents at that crucial time?
Okay. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I begin by congratulating my honourable friend on the recent addition to his family. I hope he had a restful summer, although I doubt it, considering the likely lack of sleep. He is right to raise this issue, Mr. Speaker. It is now past the date for the call for evidence, but if he wants to write to me directly about that, I will ensure that it is fed in.
John Lammy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Cruel cuts to the winter fuel allowance from both this Labour government and the SNP government in Edinburgh left thousands of pensioners cold in their homes last winter. So when will the Secretary of State apologise for the misery her government has caused to vulnerable pensioners in the Scottish borders and across the United Kingdom?
Minister.
I thank the honourable member for his question. We obviously discussed this issue at some length in the statement before recess, and he knows the priority for this party has been to raise the state pension, committing to the triple lock throughout this Parliament at a cost of £31 billion a year. For the new state pension, that's an increase by the end of the Parliament of £1,900 a year. On the winter fuel payment specifically, I think most people, I thought this was the position of the party opposite, think that we shouldn't be in a position where we're paying hundreds of pounds to the very richest pensioners. We have listened to concerns and raised the level of the threshold, but it is important to maintain that principle. If the position of the party opposite is now that they want to see a return to universal winter fuel payments, they need to have a word with the leader of the opposition, who has not supported universal winter fuel payments or indeed a universal state pension.
John Slinger.
I'm visiting the Job Centre in Rugby next week, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from them about their work with local businesses and also with people with disabilities and special educational needs to get people back into work. So could the Minister set out what further steps we're doing in that very important job of a Labour government?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend for his question. And I'm glad that he's visiting Rugby Job Centre, and I would encourage all members right across this House to go to their local job centres, because their work coaches have the most experience and knowledge about the things that we need to do to get people into work. We are creating Job Centre in your pocket so that everyone can have access to help 24 hours a day. And that letting technology take the strain will mean that our work coaches can do more of what they do best, which is giving people, person to person, the confidence to take up life's chances.
John Bland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, Policy Exchange published a very insightful report, Out of Control, looking at the pathways into benefit entitlements. They made the point that 50 years ago, just 1 in 2,500 people was said to have autism. Today, that has risen to 1 in 36 children. Will the ministerial team undertake to look at the implications of that definitional creep and the specific implications for benefit entitlements of her department?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we have set up a panel of experts to advise us on how best to improve employment prospects for people with autism and with neurodivergence. I'd also say to him, we are, as he knows, going to be undertaking a review of the PIP assessment, so that co-producing it with disabled people, so that we have a clear way forward for who should and should not be entitled to personal independence payment.
Peter Swallow.
My honourable friend set out how this government is reforming pensions long term to help people in Bracknell Forest and across the country to save for their futures.
Minister.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for his question, and it's a crucial question. That's exactly why we have revived the landmark Pension Commission. We've got to confront the reality that currently we are on track for tomorrow's pensioners to be poorer than today's. Auto-enrolment has been a huge success, with 88% of eligible pensioners now saving, but 45% of working-age adults are currently saving nothing. 3 million self-employed, 1 in 4 low earners, and the Commission will ensure we build a pension system that is strong, fair and sustainable.
Listen, Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Carers Allowance Overpayments Review was due to report in early summer. It is now the 1st of September. In recent weeks, I've become aware of a case where the DWP has informed somebody that they now are owed, they now owe the DWP £18,000. That is a scandal. When is the review going to report back?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we have received the report from Liz Sace, and I want to thank her very much for her review of earnings-related overpayments of carers allowance. We are currently considering the findings. We are, as she knows, making a number of changes. We've increased the earnings threshold for carers allowance in a way that will help, I think, avoid these problems in the future. We're looking at the possibility of a taper on carers allowance, but we'll come forward before very long at all, both with the report and with the government's response to it.
Joanna Baxter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As someone who proudly served the trade union movement for 2 decades before entering this place, I warmly welcome this government's improvement to workers' rights. Can I ask the Minister to set out what steps are being taken to ensure that no one is left behind in the vital reforms to statutory sick pay?
Yeah. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I know that so many of my honourable friends, including the honourable lady, will welcome the changes that we're making to statutory sick pay, improving eligibility for 1.3 million of the lowest paid employees, removing the waiting period. And many of those who will benefit are low-paid women. We know that the removal of the waiting period will mean all employees receive at least £60 more at the start of their sickness absence compared to the current system. But we will continue to evaluate these measures as they are implemented.
Kirsty Black.
It's the only part of these islands where child poverty is falling as a result of the Scottish Child Payment and as a result of the mitigation of the bedroom cap. When will the Labour government move from empty words to actual action to take children out of poverty?
Here. Secretary of State.
We are already extending free school meals to all families on universal credit. We have extended the holiday activities and food programme, so we feed poor kids not just during school but in the holidays too. We have introduced a new fair repayment rate in universal credit. We have done the first ever multi-year settlement on the Crisis and Resilience Fund to help struggling families. We're introducing rolling out breakfast clubs. Our child poverty strategy will be published in the autumn. We're already taking action to tackle poverty. We will do more, and I would say to the honourable lady, the Scottish Government needs to look at how it's spending the biggest ever funding settlement given in the spending review, including on employment support, because helping parents into good quality jobs is the long-term key to tackling poverty and inequality.
Chair of the Select Committee, Debbie Abrahams.
Mr. Speaker. I was delighted to see the establishment of the Disability Advisory Panel a week or so ago. So sorry, Mr. Speaker, I've got a cold. Could the Right Honourable Gentleman let us know how will this advisory panel link with the co-production in the Timms Review?
Well, I'm grateful to my honourable friend, and we've announced that Zara Todd will be the chair of the Department's Disability Advisory Panel. The panel was announced in the Get Britain Working White Paper last year. We are separately going to be setting up a group to work with me on the review of the PIP assessment. Of course, I'll be talking to the Disability Advisory Panel about those arrangements, but they will be separate structures.
Final question, Sir Julian Lewis.
Despite his new role in riding to the rescue of the Treasury, is the Pensions Minister still available to fulfil in principle the undertaking he gave me before the recess to have a meeting about the plight of ExxonMobil pensioners and the difficulties in them getting the discretionary surplus benefits to which I think they should be entitled?
Absolutely.
Minister. Right. Before we come to the statement by the Home Secretary, I should like to say something about the House of Justice resolution. The case of Epping Forest District Council versus Simona Hotels is still active and before the court. However, because this case concerns wider issues relating to the planning consent required for hotels to house asylum seekers, I've decided to grant a waiver so that members are free to refer to it in proceedings. However, I would remind the House that there are other active criminal prosecutions relating to disorder around the Bell Hotel and elsewhere, as well as one prosecution of an asylum seeker for alleged sexual offences. Honourable members may refer to the general issues relating to asylum accommodation, but should avoid discussing any specific criminal cases. I now call the Home Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With permission, I will update the House on actions that we are taking with France to strengthen our border security and the next steps on our reforms to the asylum system. The House will be aware that when we came into the government, we found an asylum and immigration system in chaos. Small boat gangs for 7 years had been allowed to embed their criminal trade along the French coast. The asylum backlog was soaring and illegal working was being ignored. The previous government had lost control of the system and, as a result, opened many hundreds of asylum hotels across the country, while returns were a third lower than in 2010. And before leaving office, they deliberately cut asylum decision-making by 70%, leaving a steeply rising backlog behind. It is little wonder that people right across the country lost confidence in the system and demanded to know why they were paying the price of a system that was so out of control. But that does not mean that people rejected the long and proud history of Britain doing our bit to help those fleeing persecution or conflict, including in the past decade families from Ukraine, Syria and Hong Kong. Because it is the British way to do our bit alongside other countries to help those who need sanctuary. But the system has to be controlled and managed, based on fair and properly enforced rules, not chaos and exploitation driven by criminal smuggler gangs. And it is exactly because of our important tradition that substantial reforms are needed now. In our first year in government, we've taken immediate action, laying the foundations for more fundamental reform. We have restored asylum decision-making and then rapidly increased the rate of decisions. Had we continued with the previous government's freeze on asylum decisions, thousands more people would have been in hotels and asylum accommodation by now. Instead, we removed 35,000 people with no right to be here, including a 28% increase in returns of failed asylum seekers and a 14% increase in removals of foreign criminals. We've increased raids and arrests on illegal working by 50%, and we cut the annual hotel bill by almost £1 billion in the last financial year. We are rolling out digital ID and biometric kits so immigration enforcement can check on the spot whether someone has a right to work or a right to be in the UK. And on channel crossings and organised immigration crime, we are putting in place new powers, new structures and new international agreements to help dismantle the criminal industry behind the boats. So I want to update the House on the further steps we're now taking. In August, I signed the new treaty with France, allowing us for the first time to directly return those who arrive on small boats. The first detentions took place the next day of people immediately on arrival in Dover, and we expect the first returns to begin later this month. Applications have also been opened for the reciprocal legal route, with the first cases under consideration, subject to strict security checks. We've made clear this is a pilot scheme, but the more we prove the concept at the outset, the better we will be able to develop and grow it. But the principles it embodies are crucial, because no one should be making these dangerous or illegal journeys on small boats, and if they do, we want to see them swiftly returned. But in return, we believe in doing our bit alongside other countries to help those who have fled persecution through managed and controlled legal programmes. This summer, we've also taken further action to strengthen enforcement against smuggling gangs. France has reviewed its maritime approach to allow for the interception of taxi boats in French waters, and we will continue to work with them to implement this change as soon as possible. In the last year, the National Crime Agency has led 347 disruptions of immigration crime networks, their highest level on record, and a 40% increase in a year. Over the summer, we announced a £100 million uplift in funding for border security and up to 300 more personnel in the National Crime Agency focusing on targeting the smuggler gangs. And the border security bill will give them stronger powers, counter-terrorism powers against smuggler gangs, powers to seize and download mobile phones of small boat arrivals, and the power to ban sex offenders from the asylum system altogether. Mr. Speaker, if opposition parties work with us to speed passage through the other place instead of opposing the bill, those powers could be in place within months, making our country safer and more secure. Let me turn now to the major reforms that are needed to fix the broken asylum system that we inherited. Although we have increased decision-making and increased returns, the overall system remains sclerotic, outdated and unfair. So, as we committed in the Immigration White Paper, we will shortly set out more radical reforms to modernise the asylum system and to boost our border security, tackling the pull factors, strengthening enforcement,